pleasant good afternoon and welcome. Okay. A very pleasant good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon rush. We apologize for the delayed start. Just now we were having some technical difficulties there, but we are live and we are ready to go, folks. A very pleasant good afternoon. My name is Randolph Critchlow and I'm joined this afternoon by my very special co-host, Miss Nicole Telford. Nicole, it's lovely to have you this afternoon.
Thank you, and thank you to the viewers too. Welcome, share the live.
Yes, those persons who were on and who stayed on for this little delay that we had in the beginning, we want to say thank you very much for joining us. Of course, it has been 387 days since the March 2nd regional and general elections, and the country still does not have credible results from those elections. It's been 234 days. 234 days since this fraudulent administration was installed, and Guyana continues to carry this monkey on their backs. Of course, we are continuing to bring to you all that is happening in and around Guyana as it relates to this fraudulent administration. We are going to be unpacking some issues this afternoon. Myself and Nicole are going to be doing it this afternoon. I'm so happy to have you here, Nicole. We were here part of the budget debates, and you're back this afternoon. I don't know if you'll be staying with us.
No,
well,
I will pop by more than 2 times.
Right. So we're happy to have you stop by today and to help me unpack some of these issues. As we normally do, we say thank you very much for joining those persons who are joining internationally in the region and right here in Guyana. Right. So we are going to ask you, of course, to say where you're joining us from. East New York. This person has been joining us every day from East New York. We want to say thank you very much. Let us know where you're joining us from, and we are monitoring the chat so we can know where you are coming from. We want to say lovely to have you. I know the audience, the viewing audience for this 5:30 show, they're very enthusiastic about sharing the live stream, and we ask you again to share the live stream. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. Right, Nicole, we have some news to we have some news to unpack as people come in and they join the live stream. Thank you very much and share. Barbados in the house. Wow, Atlanta, Essequibo, live from Brooklyn, Queens, watching from Paris. Thank you very much. Merci. From Chicago, from Atlanta. Antigua and Barbuda, of course. You know, Nicole, we always say we have so many lovely supporters over there in the Caribbean, especially in Antigua.
Yes. Oh yes, and Trinidad, Barbados, St. Martins, all across the Caribbean. So thank you for joining.
Well, people are watching from the French Guiana, Minnesota. Sorry, you don't have
Virginia.
Yes.
New Amsterdam.
Right, Bronxville, New York, Maryland, Liberty Avenue. All right, thank you very much for being a part of this, and let's get right into it this afternoon. We have some as we normally start with what I like to call the bad numbers. Nicole, we saw today another COVID death, and we are continuing to see it happen, and again, our thoughts and prayers with those families who are losing persons to COVID. Let's start with that.
And a good time to remind the viewers to just mask up, wash your hands, wear your mask, separate and distance yourself from others in crowded spaces.
Yes, definitely. We're going to try and get that video up for you so we can show you the number. I think it's 220 today, the 220th COVID death.
21 or 20, between 20 and 21.
We're going to get the numbers now. Hopefully, I think we're having some internet problems, but that was the problem earlier with
when we came on.
Yes, we are having serious internet problems, so we're going to try and get that sorted out so that we can have a smooth flow today, and we are going to bring you all of the information. Let's see if we can get the video again. Our operators are working hard to ensure that all
of the information is streamed live, and it's at our fingertips so that you can get it. Meanwhile, share the live. Yeah. We're streaming live, so you share the live.
Connecticut in the house, Sophia. Brooklyn in the house. Queens. Thank you very much for joining, folks. Thank you very much for joining. We're going to continue and try and get that video for you. So let's get the ball rolling this afternoon. Nicole, we have a packed show this afternoon. We have a guest coming all the way from
Antigua. Linden.
So we have a quite interesting, Nicole, the guest who is going to be joining us from Antigua is from Linden.
Yes, that too.
Right. And we, of course, will be speaking with the regional chairman of Region Number 10, Mr. Darren Adams, on what is happening there in Region Number 10 as it relates to the continued action by the nurses.
An update on the nurses situation in Linden that has been ongoing for quite a long time, 3 weeks.
Yes.
No end in sight.
Yeah. In light of we're not getting our videos to start or unpacking today, we are going to go straight to that guest. Mr. Darren sorry, I can't Darren Adams. I know I got Williams in my head. But folks, let's get right into that interview with Mr. Darren Adams, and he'll be telling us a bit about what's happening in there. Mr. Adams, I was about to call you Williams. I don't know why, but good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Randolph. Good afternoon, Nicole.
Good afternoon, Regional Chairman. How is it in region? How is it in Region 10?
Well, it's going on here.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
raining.
Okay.
But we are still dealing with this parasite.
Wow. I know, and let's start there. Let's start there, regional chair. We know that the nurses have said in no uncertain terms that they're not going to be working with or under Mr. Rudy Small, and we had more revelations outside of the whole Sweet Woman comment. Other revelations about people having to go on dinners and his sexual advances and many more inappropriate things. So what is the position right now?
But I can tell you this, Randolph, that almost 1 month after expressing, I think we might have lost.
We're hearing
Go
you.
ahead, go ahead. You go ahead.
Yes.
We hear you.
So almost 1 month after expressing the resolve of the council and people of Region 10 in solidarity with the nurses, staff, and of course the union of the Linden Hospital complex, this government sees it fit to allow one man to stand between the peace and the efficient operation of the health facility. And that is most unfortunate. I believe the administration is using this issue to test the resolve of the people of Region 10. I guess maybe to see how much they can get away with ignoring the calls by the entire people of Region 10. But we have, just yesterday, we have seen more damning revelations coming to light as it relates to what this former CEO would have done since being since serving at the hospital there. And I would have gotten these excerpts from the Info 10 media house, and I want to just brief those persons listening. Now, Rudy Small is now facing criticism for one, terminating the services of several long-standing contractors after mere weeks of his appointment. In December, the former CEO, Rudy Small, came under heavy criticism, of course, you know, for terminating the services of the ambulance brigade, removing close to $54 million from that, from persons who are employed there, sending them home, single parents, with no clear direction as to where they will go. And so this is a pattern that he has kind of, and the momentum that he was building leading up to these events. In addition to the St. John's Ambulance Brigade, he would have discontinued the services of the Foresta Security Company that was contracted for many years to provide security service. That they too abruptly, their services was abruptly terminated. This man has been targeting even the taxi services. One Linden taxi service that was providing transportation to the Linden Hospital complex for 3 decades. They were also cut off without explanation. And so, and I also understand that he would have told the management to not contact that taxi service for any transportation duties. So apparently he has his friends and his cronies who he wants to bring in, and he's manipulating the system to get them to come in and get these projects. Now, this particular taxi service, as I said, has been around for some 3 decades. They were transporting staff and meals to the COVID-19 isolation facility until, of course, Rudy came. And this is most unfortunate that during a pandemic, you are getting rid of people who would have been providing services for some 30 years or so. Another long-standing contractor who was cut off was a Mr. Benjamin, who was providing mechanical services to the hospital. This is for over 20 years. So he was servicing the buses and the ambulance and these other things. And he would have removed the mechanic as well, under the pretext or under the guise that the mechanic was not performing. But how do you justify one not performing but his contract being renewed for 20 years? It just doesn't make sense. And I'm sure if we launch an investigation into all of these things, you will find that somebody, some relative or some close friend of Rudy Small is now benefiting from these services. But most of all, we are concerned about the dismal failure of this gentleman, how the situation at the hospital has um, somewhat hit rock bottom down to cotton wool is not in the hospital. There's massive shortages, over 80% since his appointment. Um, and he has not taken steps to correct this. An 87-year-old woman went to the hospital and there are red lines drawn all through all of the medication that was recommended by the doctors. But this CEO has find time to plan dates with nurses to speak to persons and try attempt to have dinner with his secretary and trying to get cozy with nurses, but he's not focused on the task ahead, on what he was what he was there, the service he was there to provide, which is most unfortunate. So we continue to stand with our nurses. We will not back down. In fact, they were protesting up to today. And I believe the time will come very soon when this will be extended to other parts of the country.
And that would have been my next question. We have the Wisma Hospital, Kokwani Health Centers, and all of those health centers across the region in Linden. Are any of the nurses from those areas protesting or giving support to the nurses from the Linden Hospital complex?
Well, I can tell you this. I was in Kokwani, for example, and the nurses and the nurses and the people by extension, the residents. Apparently, there was a rumor that he was being moved to Kokwani. And the first question that was asked when I had that outreach there is, we hope you're not sending Rudy Small here. So he's not welcome there. In fact, they have been giving support. They have been informing residents of what has been happening. And so I cannot understand why to date the administration continues to ignore the call by majority of the people here in Region 10, over 19,000 persons, who are saying that they do not want Rudy Small. And as I would have said earlier, I believe that the administration is using this particular issue to test the resolve of our people here in Region 10, right? The fact that they can at any time simply remove the gentleman, Nicole, but they choose to remove him with one hand and reinstate him the very next day, as well as to ignore the cause of the union, as I would have said, the nurses, the Regional Democratic Council, the residents, points to them playing a waiting game to see if we can really, I believe, exert influence on the people of this region. And I want them to know that we can influence, bring more people out, right? We're cognizant that there's a pandemic, yes, but do not take the people of Region 10 for granted.
And in terms of the taxi services provided and a few other, what he said, contractors yes, that were let go by Rudy Small. Do you know if there were any information out there or given as to why they choose to discontinue the services of those service providers in Linden?
Well, I can tell you this. In one case, if you listen to the comments, there was no warning. He just woke up one day and told them, do not use these taxis. The mechanic was called in. All kinds of allegation was put to the man that vehicle, that he wasn't servicing these vehicles to the standard of the hospital, and they were breaking down every day and every week. Nothing of the sort. My thing is, if this was so, why was the hospital, before Rudy Small came on board, Why was this man's contract being renewed? And he was providing a service for some 20 years. All of a sudden, you mean to tell me that Rudy is the only one that could find all of these problems happening? So the and we know now that we can't trust anything that he says. We know that he's a liar. At first, he said he did not make the statement. Then, when the recording was released, he backpedaled. He said he made the statement. He attempted to apologize. He couldn't even do it from his heart. He had to read from a piece of paper. So it wasn't genuine. And so these simple things continue to be highlighted. The firing of the St. John's Ambulance Brigade, removing over $54 million from the region, his influence and his negative influence, I should say, in the work environment is not one that is welcoming. And so over 400 staff, along with the other admin, are not prepared to work with him. And by extension, the people of Region 10, we will continue to call for his removal. I do not want things to escalate and get out of control. And so I believe that we cannot, and the government of the day should not allow this one man to hold the entire region hostage. In any case, his service to Region 10 has been one that is of massive failure. Over 80% of the drugs are not in the hospital, not even cotton wool. They can try to attempt to mislead their base by saying that drugs were expired and all kind of nonsense. Cotton wool won't expire.
And that's my question. Have you ever seen any burning of drugs or any large number of drugs being thrown away or put to discard from the hospital, or have anybody, or has anybody in the region had to deal with any officer or so? Because Linden is a small town, even though we have hundreds of different areas. But people must see if there were drugs being dumped or burnt or thrown away. So that was going to be my question.
So I would say this: there's never been such a case. I have never seen any photos of such. What is most surprising and shocking is that just before I would have visited the hospital along with the councillors of the RDC and some of the other leaders in the region, Rudy Small was on national TV saying to the public that there are over 80% coverage of drugs in the hospital. This was a blatant lie on NCN. That story and that propaganda was peddled. And of course, that's what forced us into the fields to visit the hospital. And when we got there, we saw something totally different from what Rudy Small would have said. Then once we would have magnified it and made it public, and these are simultaneously while we were dealing with the comments that he would have made to our nurses, the disparaging and disrespectful comments, we decided that enough is enough, because the week before, this guy is on TV saying that there's no shortages of drugs, everything is under control. But then we're getting reports from residents that there's no insulin, that there's no metformin, that there's no aspirin, that there's no cotton wool. And it was just ridiculous. And I'm happy that we went on the ground, because we can safely say now that the residents and those who are complaining, we believe them as against what this lying, liar CEO was, the propaganda that he was peddling out there.
As we move forward, as you said, the actions will continue by the nurses. And again, I believe what you said is exactly true, that they're trying to test the resolve of the people of Linden. But is there anything else that can be done at this point in time? And how long are the nurses prepared? I know this question would have been asked already, but how long are they prepared to continue or to keep up this action?
Well, what I can say to you is that because we're being denied the access, our movements are somewhat being curtailed. You can't go on NCN, you can't go on LBN. Everything you want to say has to be sent to Georgetown. We are using different mediums, such as this one and many others, to let the nurses know that we still support them, that we stand with them. We are seeing it catching on. People in the diaspora are calling in to give support to them. Um, and so, just like would have happened in November and December, I have contacted our sponsors in the diaspora. They will send in PPE gear. So we will not wait on the government or Rudy Small or whoever. If we can find avenues to bring relief and support to our nurses, we will do so by engaging our partners in the diaspora and having those PPEs coming. I just saw photos. Imagine the injection for COVID is being administered, and you have senior citizens sitting under a tent that is leaking, and the records are being threatened because water is getting to them. You have senior citizens coming out with umbrella, have to shelter under the tent. And despite that, they're coming because they want to get the injection. They want to fight this dreaded disease. But here you have a CEO and those who are serving there, not giving or showing this genuine concern for people's health, especially our seniors. And that is of concern to us. The issue with the dialysis machine, you have heard me for 2 months now coming on this program highlighting what has been happening. No response to date. All the letters that we have written, no reply. We have patients who continue to suffer from dialysis, have to spend $45,000 a week to travel to Georgetown. The coalition would have placed a dialysis machine, 2 machines, AC, comfortable seating for our seniors. Why is it that this administration can't accelerate the process and ensure that our patients who are suffering from kidney failure access these services right here in Linden? The CEO wasn't making any representation. I don't know what he was doing. He was inviting nurses to dinner, so he didn't have time to make representation for dialysis or made representation for drugs or anything. He was firing people, allegedly making advances to the secretary that she had to resign, and it is on record. And what is most unfortunate is that you have nurses speaking out at a public forum where the media is present, and you have Bishop Juan Edghill stopping the forum to inform the media that they should not carry these stories until investigation is done. These are the nurses making these allegations against the CEO, that he is making inappropriate advances to them. There is, in fact, I understand that there is a recording that can be made, but will likely be made public if he continues to put up a resistance. And so we hope that when that happens, just like the first recording, where he said that he did it off record and he was just having a casual talk, when you listen to the recording, you hear that he is the one that activated that conversation to that level of disrespecting the nurses. And so clearly we are dealing with cases. You heard of Bishop Juan Edghill going to Riversview and telling the children there that the regional chairman was never there and that he was recently there. When I got there, the residents said that he was never there. So, it's lies and propaganda and attempts to malign genuine people. That is what is happening in the administration. Well, you know of the other situation in Linden that was peddling. I'm not going to get into that. But
that was the social media troll where the Juan Edghill, the Minister of Public Works, was forced to put out a statement you're talking about. I think that was so lawless. That situation was very lawless. And for him to have to put out a statement on something like that, it's worrying at the level, and he's a bishop, he runs a church. It is funny. I was appalled. What you thought of it, Randy?
I was disgusted at the story of itself. I couldn't believe that such a thing would have happened. Allegedly happened. I don't know. The bishop put out say he didn't lose his firearm. but said nothing about the other allegations made on social media. So that was a very strange
And
situation.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So, you know, here we have them miscreants running around the place, lying, and probably it is, you know, bizarre. The entire thing was bizarre.
Nicole, sorry, if we to hold and take as gospel, the bishop went on NCN, Nicole, and said that he was in Rivers View recently, and he asked a 5-year-old girl or some children that were gathered what was the name of the regional chairman and if he was there, and they did not know. When I got into Rivers View, I asked the people, I hope that you would have raised your concerns with the bishop as it relates to the erosion and the internet not being on. I understand that they have planned a trip to Rivers View. So I hope that they fix the issues now there, right? And it took the regional chairman and councillors from the RDC to going and highlight these things. And I'm hopeful that they use the taxpayers' money to bring relief to those people. But he lied. Now, had we not gotten the evidence and the recordings, he could have put out a statement and say that he was there, and had we not followed through, everybody would have believed what he said. But the fact that we went in and we asked the Tushaw and the residents there, and they said no, and it's on record, anything that this man says, including any statement that is coming out about any alleged thing against him, we have to take it with a grain of salt, because he's not a man that can be trusted. You can't take him on the surface. You can't take him for his word. We have caught him lying on numerous occasions.
Joining us this afternoon and keep the fight up.
Yeah.
Regional Chairman, Region number 10, Darren Adams.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very much. All right. Folks, you had there Regional Chair, Region number 10, Darren Adams. Bringing some light, Nicole, to a number of things happening there in Linden. Of course, we have had our eyes on Linden for a while now as the nurses protest Rudy Small, and now we see Rudy Small taking actions to remove long-standing persons who had contracts with the Linden Hospital complex, giving of course no reason, but you know, these are the things that we see, and again, I asked an interesting question, and I don't seem to be getting any answers. What or where is the Minister of Health? You have persons under your charge. Those nurses are protesting in Linden day in and day out, and the minister is silent. All the minister did was to reinstate Rudy Small and leave that.
And you know what's another thing? No other organization, for example, the social organizations across Guyana, have come out to condemn that statement.
Yeah.
You understand? And it's a shame. It's a real shame and a disgrace that we will look at partisan politics rather than the issue that is gravely affecting those nurses.
Yeah.
So those were, you know, some of the things that really bothered me with regards to that particular situation. Randy, you got a lot on your plate today. We have just joining in.
We have a few other news things to get to, Nicole. What's in the news? As we said to you, we wanted to share with you those COVID numbers. Let's see if we can get them for you now before we get out to our next guest, who is going to be joining us all the way from Antigua.
Yes, Miss Modver Boxill Bradford. She'll be joining us all the way from Antigua, and as we await her arrival. Oh, she's right here, but we'll await it and give you some news.
Yeah.
So we'll ask our guests to hold.
Right. So today, Nicole, we also saw a report coming out from the police stating that no evidence of assault was seen in that issue with Tabitha Sarabuhili and Mr. What's his name again?
Kwame
McCoy. You know, it's good that I'm forgetting the name.
Yeah. the minister within the ministry of the office of the president.
Right. So we saw that too. We saw the Mr. Hoppy stating that the investigators claim that they don't see any evidence of an assault. They do agree that the two persons had an exchange of words, but the video footage from the area where the assault happened was not available quite conveniently again, as we saw those things happening in the parliament there. And we're going to get to that. We are going to bring you all of those news a little later down, but we don't want to keep our guests waiting this afternoon. She's coming all the way from Antigua, so let's welcome her in right now. And right, let's welcome her in to the show. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nicole and Randy.
Hi, good afternoon. Let's see if we can get a better shot of you here. Yeah, so. Mm-hmm.
Yes, welcome to the program, Mudveer. You're a guest on this afternoon rush, right? Welcome to the program, your first program in Guyana, and I'm happy to have you. You're a professional in agriculture, an agronomist, if one might add. Could you shed a little light about you and where you hail from and where you're at now?
Thank you, Nicole and Randy. Good afternoon to your listening audience. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I was thrilled when I was called to be here. I was a bit nervous, but I think I can defend myself. I am from Amelia's Ward, Linden, Guyana. I attended the Christianburg Wisdom Multilateral School, where I started my career in agriculture under the distinguished Brenda Allicock, who was my teacher. I've had stints with Dr. Sarah Eitel, Mr. Paul Backus, Mr. Oren Gordon at the Surpana Farm, where I got some of my practical exposure at a tender age. On completion of secondary school, I worked at the Mackenzie High School for a brief moment as a teacher, where I taught agricultural science and integrated science. Can you hear me? Thank you. I proceeded to the Guyana School of Agriculture, where I pursued a diploma in agriculture. And upon the completion of the diploma in agriculture, I immediately returned to the region where I provided my services at the Ministry of Education, and I was posted once again in the agricultural department at the Mackenzie High School under the head of department, Mr. George Daniel. I spent about a year or two, after which I thought that I should pursue further studies to develop myself personally. And I went on to the University of Guyana, where I pursued a general degree in agriculture. Upon the completion of that, during my stint at the University of Guyana, I had a number of student attachments with the National Agricultural Research Institute, where I was afforded the opportunity to work with distinguished scientists like Dr. Patrick Chesney, Mr. David Frederick, Mr. Ralph, and some of the prominent research scientists at the National Agricultural Research Institute at Monrepo. Upon completion of my degree, I proceeded to take up residence in Antigua, where I was landed in a job in the Ministry of Agriculture. Before I left Guyana, I worked briefly with the Ministry of Agriculture, where I was placed in the crops and livestock sector, or the section where I was specifically involved in plant quarantine activities at the Chedijegan International Airport, where we would inspect produce entering and leaving the country. I also did some work with the pink hibiscus mealybug when it was discovered in Guyana. I was part of the survey team with a number of senior scientists and research personnel from the Ministry of Agriculture to combat the pink mealybug in Guyana. On my arrival in Antigua, I gained employment with the Ministry of Agriculture, where I was responsible for the research and development in the crop research division. I had a brief stint also in the plant protection department due to my experience in the Ministry of Agriculture in Guyana, and I subsequently proceeded to pursue a master's in crop protection at the University of Guyana, at the University of the West Indies, sorry, in the Masters of Crop Protection, and I specialized in weed science. During my stint in Trinidad, I was attached to the Chaguaramas Development Authority, where I worked under the supervision of Professor Richard Burfitt and Miss Dr. Wendy Ann Isaacs. And I did a study on using non-synthetic or organic materials for the control of weeds for the hot pepper export out of Trinidad. So I gained some experience or practical experience in working with some of these products in Trinidad while there.
That's
Upon the
excellent.
completion. Sorry?
Excellent, Maud. That's excellent. And this brings me to, yes, this brings me to a really important question. Agriculture is starting to boom in Linden. And with all of that experience you have in the agriculture sector, recently we noted farmers, and not only in Linden, because you hail from Linden, but all across Guyana, Region 6, the farmers market, Randy. It's
Region number 4.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And that's an interesting point that you're raising. But I know you want to ask her about Linden. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry, don't let me interrupt you.
No, I really wanted to
Go
ask
ahead.
her about Linden.
Go ahead.
With regards to the farming community and how it is improving and what are our thoughts on it.
Okay.
Paul and Randy, as a resident of Linden, I feel very encouraged. I felt proud when I saw it that the Regional Development Council, in collaboration with the Agricultural Department, hosted the second market day where they were able to showcase farmers, whether it is crop, livestock, fisher folks, agro-processors, local manufacturers, vendors of agricultural produce, foresters, and to name, a few. But I think the vision is one, to have Linden to be recognized that we have the capability to produce food to feed ourselves, to achieve food security in a safe and an efficient way for the region. I felt very encouraged with what I saw. I think we are moving away from the traditional systems where we would have seen farmers growing more monocrop, pineapple, coconut, citrus. I see more mixed farming. I see livestock farming. I was very pleased and I was elated to see such an activity, and I hope they continue this type of activity in Linden.
Often to Guyana. So, will you be taking part in any way, shape, or form in encouraging them?
Very much so, Nicole. I've had a few colleagues that I've attended high school with, and I've also had students that I've taught at Mackenzie High School, and some random people who have reached out to me for advice with respect to agricultural development in Linden. I think the mission is clear, and it's good that the region can empower the farmers, to increase agricultural production in a viable and profitable way. And if I'm called upon to assist, indeed I would. My colleague Theodore Adams has ventured into if he allows me to say his name on the program, which I doubt he will have. He will have a problem with that. And he has embarked on a massive agricultural development project, and he has reached out to me where I would have assisted him as to where he can get, the materials where he can, provide his farms with the crop of his choice, whether it's coconut or plantain. So he got a source where he can source that plantain material. And if I'm called upon in any way to assist the region, I am most willing to do that.
Miss Boxhill, in Linden, especially there's an agency by the name of LEN. What we find happening, if you can take that aspect of it, Randy,
No,
because you were interviewing on that particular topic with the regional chairman for a while.
You know, I'm wondering about the agriculture aspect of that, and what are your thoughts on how we make that a more viable option? I know that LEN deals with a number of things, not only agriculture.
Not only agriculture, but funding at LEN.
Right.
The board has not been constituted.
Yes.
And that hinders the farmers from accessing loans to improve on their probably machinery and farm supplies and all of that. And sometimes what you can access at LEN, you may not be able to access at the banks. Yeah. So those are some of the problems. What do you think?
And before you go, I think if you can give us a little more light, because the viewers are saying they're not seeing you clearly. Right, give us a little more light on your face. We're still not seeing you.
We're still not seeing you.
You need to face the light. As we sort that out, folks, we're speaking, of course, to a friend from Antigua, and give them an idea of who she is again. And
well, yes, as for those of you just joining and those of you who've stayed with us, Maud-Vere Box Hill Bransford is a Lindener, hail from Linden. She's an agronomist, very accomplished, and who resides in Antigua. And as she comes on, before she answers that question, I have another question for her, because in Antigua there are lots and lots of farmers.
Yeah, right. So we have her back again, much better.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
I was just mentioning to our audience that even in Antigua there are lots and lots of farmers from Guyana who ply their trade all along the market and the street areas, and if you can, shed some light on what they do there.
Yes, Nicole, we do have quite a few farmers here, and it is always pleasing to see them, producing at a level. Antigua is located in the Leeward Islands, as you know. It's about 108 square miles. It is the annual rainfall is very minimal, so farmers have to look at methods where they can utilize to produce their produce under these agroecological conditions. Antigua is divided into 3 agroecological zones, namely the Southwest, the Central, and the Limestone Plain. Most of our farmers are located in the Central. The Southwest Plain is more the pineapple, the Antigua black pineapple, which you may know. That soil type facilitates the growth of that specific variety. We're seeing now with COVID-19 and persons not working in the hotel sector, they have diversified, they have applied for lands, and they have been doing farming, whether it is mixed cropping, a sole cropping, or monoculture, you would call it, or livestock. Some would even be, some of them are even into fishing. They are into agro processing. And if you visit the market on a Friday and during the Saturday morning market, you would see quite a few vegetables and fruits that we are accustomed to see in Guyana, the bora, the corilla, so farmers are doing those types of crops, mainly for the Guyanese population we have here. In fact, I have friends who have introduced to, the corilla. They said it's bitter, but when you cook it, they like it. So that is the kind of thing. And we're seeing some striving. We also have a prominent person here by the name of Paul Bacchus, who was the manager of the Sorpana farm at one time. He was part of the National Development Foundation, and that entity would have provided farmers or small farmers with loans to enable their business. So we find that a lot of Guyanese are doing agriculture, and they're doing it at a successful level.
And you're speaking about the Sorpana farm in Linden?
Yes, sir.
Maud-Vere, we're so thankful to have you on the program, and we wish you'd join us another time to discuss so many other issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. Right. I think Randy has asked a question on LEN. LEN is what? Linden
Yes.
Enterprise. What is the
Pri-
meaning of that?
yes, the
Right.
Linden Enterprise for Investment.
Okay, I think I remember it.
Yeah.
Agriculture is fragile. Why? It is the only the only, let's say, occupation that farmers are they suffer a lot. Whether it is pests and diseases, as you know, it is natural disasters, disasters, for example, hurricane and drought. It is also predator larceny. And what I find with the persons who enter agriculture, most times because it is so fragile, they're unable to access loans from institutions to propel their businesses because of the whole nature of the business, where persons would think that it's just waste of time. It's useless. You can plant a crop and destroy it would be destroyed by a flood in a minute or so. If we can have farmers given title deeds and they have the assurance that the title deeds they receive for their land, they can use that as collateral to gain finances, to expand their business, or even to get into the business. So we have a regional system which we're looking at giving farmers insurance, giving them that opportunity to have insurance for their farm. So in event of a natural disaster, they would be covered. That risk would be taken care of by that. So I think we have to sit and look at it in a comprehensive way. The nature of Linden being the agroecological area where it's located, I think we would not be damaged by floods easily. I know there was an issue with Akushi ants since my time. I have a colleague who was at the National Agricultural Research Institute, and they have developed methods in the way that we can manage some of these pests and diseases. And we have moved away, Nicole, in modern agriculture, where we would depend upon just one method to address a problem, but look at a more integrated weed management or an integrated pest management thing, where you look at all aspects of the control to get greater benefits into whatever venture you're into. So I think it's something we can sit at and look at, but it must be done in a way that you sit with all the institutions, the banks, the insurance, and you come up with something that would be acceptable to all parties. And I think we can go from there.
Yes.
I was just reliably informed that it's the Linden Enterprise Network.
LEN,
yes.
Enterprise Network.
Linden Enterprise
Sorry,
Network.
my apologies. Linden Enterprise Network,
Yeah.
and not
Okay,
Linden.
I remember that.
We're talking about agriculture, and it is important, as you would have mentioned,
She raised
that
some good points.
we don't move away from agriculture, because a lot of that is happening, and especially as we look towards oil and we look towards these other STEM areas, people tend to forget the land. People say, don't forget the land. So I'm happy that we had this conversation, the importance of being enterprising in that sector also.
And the importance of insurance
Mm.
and titled land to access loans, where you can move away from the handouts probably,
Yes.
and you can have something to bargain with. This would encourage you to work a little more and all of that. So
Yeah.
it was indeed a really great.
Yeah, she wanted to add something. Let's see.
Yes. Mm.
Well, I was saying that with the nature of the fragileness of agriculture, we have to look at ways where we can diversify land, capital, farm equipment, and machinery to come up with a product that will be suitable or viable to a specific region. Of course, we can grow rice. You may say we cannot grow rice because we do not have water, but there are rice that they grow in India. I've seen them growing rice under dry conditions. You have upland rice, you have varieties that can withstand water, you have varieties that cannot grow in water. So we can do it. So we have to look at a way where we would diversify our products, whether it's agro-processing. For instance, we have a lot of fruits, our tropical fruits in Linden, like fat pork, dums, and so that is where we can do some processing to an extent and have and capitalize on a niche market per se. The pineapples, yes, we grow it, we eat it with salt and you slice it up. But we can grow varieties that can be juice, that can be pulp, that can be cut and canned. So we have to look at diversification if we want to excel in the nature, in the business of agriculture.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Such a good information to share. I think it's a vital for persons to understand. And I always used to ask, I mean, I grew up in Linden. Quite interesting, all of us. We've only had Lindeners on the program today. We had
The regional chairman.
we had the regional chair, Nicole, myself, Maud, all Lindeners. This is a full Linden show today for those persons who are looking from Linden. This today was your day.
And don't let the others, because we're all guidees.
Yes.
Don't let the others get us. We'll come to you next.
We definitely appreciated your presence today and the information. I'm following the comments, and the persons are happy that we share the information today. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And do enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully we can have you back another time.
I'll be most happy because I have lots of things to share. And if in parting, I can say as a region, we can make a bang. We have to look at agriculture in the terms of research and innovation. We have to look at technological driven activities such as solar power to provide, products for agriculture, such as running farm machine. Electricity is an expensive overhead cost. We can do these things. We can also look at diversification of our produce from Linden and market ourselves in that way. And finally, we have to comply with the safety standards and quality if we want to be successful in agriculture. So I think with those four major areas in my next presentation, I would be able to expand upon them as to how we can see Linden moving forward with those general areas.
Thank you very much.
It was very insightful this afternoon, and I thank you for joining.
And you are welcome. Did Nicole tell you she was my schoolmate? And did she tell you whenever she's in Antigua we hang?
We're going to have
Always a pleasure.
we're going to have a different conversation about these hands, Nicole.
No, we can't. We can't. It's a weird
Randy, don't be jealous.
And
Thank you.
wonderful.
Right. Guys, we're gaffing there, of course, with Nicole's friend. That she hangs with informative down agronomist and doing good work over there in Antigua. Interestingly, we reading the comments on persons who are saying, look, another intelligent person lost from this country.
And she left a while ago.
Right.
When it was very unbearable being here.
Right, and they're saying, she needs to come back and this is what we see. We see a lot of our intelligent persons, our intellectuals moving on because this brain drain has been around for many years,
Yes.
many years. So it's one of those things that is sad, but people understand why people move because we're in such a climate, it's such a place in this country where politics of the day, right, erodes any sense of semblance of professionalism.
Exactly.
So we have persons who come in, sit in a seat of power, and they victimize persons because they were hired under a particular administration when that person is professional and doing their job. So it's quite an interesting thing. We have so many of our intellects out of this country.
Like how we have roll-on projects, rollover projects.
Yes.
We don't have rollover government because guess what? They attack and they send home and dismantle and dismiss and do all sort of wicked and miscreant things. Well, miscreant people.
Folks, we're quickly running out of time, but we wanted to share with you a few other things in the news. Hopefully our operator is able to get that sorted out. We want to bring a number of other things in the news. Let's see if we can pull that up. I know we spoke about this story, and Nicole, one interesting thing about this particular story that we spoke of just now about the police saying that they don't have any evidence, or there's no evidence of an assault. Where were the witnesses?
There were witnesses. Actually, there were witnesses. I think it was 2 witnesses, eyewitnesses, who saw, but you didn't hear anything in that story. So that tells you that what may have to happen is Mr. Bita Sabaru Haley, who was allegedly assaulted by Kwame McCoy, who is the minister within the Ministry of the Presidency. She would have to take him to court personally, because the top cop has informed that there was no evidence that the cameras caught any altercation between the two. However, he admitted that there was some type of exchange, some type of exchange. But the camera, they didn't tell you the type of exchange. They said there was some type of exchange. When persons who were in the vicinity and who went and viewed the tape, right, saw that the exchange looked very blackguardish, with a lot of flaying of hands and pointing. So you could tell that he was in his, feelings. So basically, that's a really sad situation. We had marched as an opposition on the occasion of Tabitha Sabaru, not the occasion, but the same day that she was assaulted by Kwame McCoy. And, the top cop saying that, I am really sad about it. I really feel depressed. Because it shows that, and this is something, Randy, that the People's Progressive Party Civic does all the time. Every time there's something happening in Guyana, and you approach the cops for any protection, as long as it is not for somebody who is subservient to the PPPC, it automatically backfires. And that is something that has to be addressed, and that persons should make their voices heard over. For the other issue you brought to light, which was in addition to the same time when Tabitha Sabaru Haley, no, not the same time, the issue day before yesterday, where the police was paid $5,000. Yesterday.
Yesterday. That story that broke, folks. If you're not aware, then you're not in tune with what is happening. Mr. Muhammad Ali, who was in hospital at the time, he was incarcerated, was taken to the hospital. Apparently, this was part of the plan also. He called into a Big Smith News to proclaim to the country that he did not escape. He paid $5,000 US to
3 policemen
or
three officers
to take 1 year off of his sentence. And it speaks about where we are in this country.
3 of the escapees were shot. My thing is that you should apprehend people when they escape. So when you apprehend them, you question them, you get the information on who, who were the perpetrators or who encouraged them to come out. So, or who they paid the money to. But guess what? It's fishy. All of the persons were shot dead by the police. What does that say? Stifle them. They can't, so you don't know if 15,000 US they receive from those 3 persons. You don't know.
You know what's interesting, Nicole? In the state, when the man called and he spoke to the reporter, it was almost as if, why are they even looking for me when I paid this money, that as if the money legitimizes the whole thing. He couldn't understand why people are saying that he escaped. It was so funny to me how he put it over. Like, you should not be telling people that I escaped when you took my money.
Right.
You
like
set me free.
Nothing is wrong with it. So they're accustomed doing that. That's a customary. So we have to be careful with the breakouts. And you notice a trend happening and reoccurring. This trend was from 2006 straight up to 2014. And the trend is recurring, so we have to watch it and guard ourselves and guard against all of this happening to us all over again.
Yeah. Folks, we are going to be talking about those topics and a few more in the coming shows coming for the rest of the week. We're also going to be talking about the Court of Appeal, the appeal of Petition 99, which of course deals with the evidence.
Oh yes.
The evidence, clear evidence of fraud that was uncovered during the recount. We keep saying it that the PPP could run and talk as much as they want about rigging the elections. But the fact is that when those boxes were opened up, we saw clearly what was done. And this is why you see them fighting Petition 99 so badly. They don't want the world and the country to see these things in the court of law. So we are going to be talking about that. In the future shows, we are going to be talking with Mr. Royzel Ford, who is of course the lead attorney on Petition 88, which deals with Order Number 60 of 2020 that dealt with this whole recount order. But we're going to be having that and much more. Folks, we have time for just one more thing. We have time for just one more thing, and then we'll be going.
Give me some folk song, let me sing something now.
Folks, in our one more thing this afternoon, as we wind down the show, I want to start a particular segment where I feature the founder leader of the PNC, LFS Burnham, and Lyndon Forbes Samson Burnham, and some of his wisdom that he left with us, Nicole.
His great quotes.
Yes.
And encouragement.
Yeah. And we want to, of course, highlight some of his achievements also as we move through the year. And we are going to be doing this, of course, on the show. We're going to, of course, have members of the Burnham Foundation to come on with us and have conversations on this great man. But I want to start today by sharing something that he would have said. And we are going to just talk about this a little bit, and we can invite our viewers to share their comments as soon as we get it there. And I want to, let me see if I can pull it up here for everyone before we go. All right. Right. Let's see if we can pull up this thing. So we're going to be talking about, not this picture. We laugh in the studio. We have our own.
Oh my God.
Our own. Folks, we're back. We are talking about LFS Burnham and his contributions, and I'm saying that we're going to have folks from the Burnham Foundation also stopping by as we continue throughout this year to share his achievements and talk about his legacy, right? Share his achievements and talk about his legacy, right? But today I want to share a particular photo. Let me share it right now. Right. And this was from the Biennial Congress. And let me read what it says here. Right. It says, for us to achieve the targeted objective, we, the leaders, activists, and the members of the Vanguard PNC must be motivated and in turn motivate the masses. The people must be involved at every level. The people must be involved at every level. And this was from the address at the third Biannual Congress of the PNCR in 1979. 1979. Now I share this particular piece, and we're calling this segment Transcendent. His words, his thoughts as vision, moving into even this new century. These words still hold true and they're still relevant. The involvement of every single one, of course, his vision
at
all levels.
And that brings us to the local democracy.
Local democracies. We're talking about involvement. This, of course, he was a man of the people. He was a man that was on the ground. He was a man, of course, that could have straddled any of those levels, whether it be talking with the man on the ground or he is orating at the UN. You know, this was the man, and his words that we're sharing this afternoon still hold true. That we must be motivated, right?
Engage.
We must engage every single level. And folks, I mean, you know, we are of course under the banner of the APNU AFC. But you know, I'm very proud PNC. So, just to put that out there, we will have these discussions on his legacy, his thoughts, his vision, moving forward. And I think it will be very, very pertinent, very important for those younger ones who are coming up to understand that the efforts being made by the PPP to sully and to stain this legacy of LFS Burnham will not hold water at this end of the pond.
The next generation will ensure that they carry forth that torch.
Right.
They will not get to sully it.
Sully his name. So we are going to be sharing his visions, his thoughts, his words on upcoming programs, and we'll continue to do this. Folks, that was one more thing for this afternoon. I think we had a very interesting program today, Nicole. I'm happy that you stopped by to grace us with your presence. Those persons who are joining us, thank you for staying tuned for this. Of course, we are going to be joining another program right after this, so do stay tuned. Remember, I always say, let's continue to work for national development. Right?
Bye.
Do enjoy the rest of your day.